Chapter 49. Mother, Kaede said, coming into the study, how are the wedding preparations coming? Duane Wariyama raised her eyes from the papers spread all over her desk. She loved lists. Our responsibilities are well in hand. Everyone has been informed of their precedents and the expected protocols. I only worry about Ashobi's mother. I'd say she has the brain of a hummingbird, except hummingbirds can hover for a moment or two. I expect the Takata's half of the ceremony to be an unmitigated disaster. She pulled off her pince-nez. I heard some lunatic arrived claiming to be a tofusen. A tofusen, she said, as if there was more than one. He's nothing, some white-haired freak, Kaede said, waving it away. Mother, I want your opinion. An insult's been done to our family honor that may be on some people's mind as we go into this wedding. So I think I have to deal with it now. One of the cousins cuckolded her husband. She swears it was long ago and brief, but its effects continue. What should I do? Duane Wariyama scrunched her eyebrows, as if the answer were so obvious that Kaede was stupid for asking. A slut cannot be tolerated, Kaede. A whore dishonors us all. Very well. I'll see it taken care of. Who is it? Mother, Kaede said quietly, I'm going to ask you a question, and if you lie to me, the consequences will be harsher than you can believe. Kaede, is this how you speak to your mother? None of that, Mother. What? Your tone is disrespectful. Silence! Kaede shouted. Duane Wariyama was too stunned for the moment to begin the usual tactics. Did you, or did you not, intercept letters that Solon sent to me? Kaede asked. Duane blinked rapidly, then said, Of course I did. For how long? Kaede asked. I don't remember. How long? Kaede asked, her voice dangerous. The Empress's mother said nothing for a long moment. Then she said, Years. Letters came every month, sometimes more often. Every week? I suppose. What did you do with them, Mother? That Solon was worse than his brother. Don't you ever speak to me of that monster. Where are the letters? They were a tissue of lies. I burned them. When did he stop sending them? Kaede asked. Her mother's expression went blank for a moment. Then she said, I don't know, 10 years ago? He didn't stop, did he? Don't you dare lie to me, by the gods, don't you dare! It's only a few times a year now. For all I know, it was some impostor hoping to break your heart again, Kay. Don't let the stranger ruin everything, even if it is Solon. You don't know him. If you postpone this wedding, it can mean the end of you. Harvest is the only time for a queen to marry, and if you delay, the seas will be impassable. The lords from the other isles won't be able to attend. You need this. We can't offend the Takatas again. Clan Takata had been a thorn in Kaede's side since she'd taken the throne. They had angled and manipulated for years for this wedding, and if as a younger woman she had sworn she would never marry Ashobi, now she knew there were no other way. Mother, is there anything else you haven't told me? Anything you want to confess? Of course not. Kaede held up a finger. I want you to think very carefully. You're not as good a liar as you believe. Her mother hesitated, but the look on her face was that of a woman aggrieved that she could be a suspect. There's nothing. Kaede had been wrong. Her mother was an excellent liar. Kaede turned to a guard. Summon my secretary and the chamberlain. Kay, what are you doing? Duane asked. The officials stepped into the room in moments. Kaede had had them waiting outside. Mother, the woman you called a slut and a whore is you. You betrayed my father and dishonored us. No, I never! Did you expect to get away with it? You fornicated with an emperor, a man surrounded by bodyguards and slaves at all hours, and you, the lady of a high house, with bodyguards and slaves of your own. Did you think no one would notice? There was real fear in Duane Wariyama's face for the first time Kaede had ever seen. It didn't mean anything, Kay, until you got pregnant and didn't know who the father was. Duane Wariyama stood transfixed, as if she couldn't believe all of her secrets had yielded their rotten fruit on the same day. Around the room, officials and guards stood with mouths agape, barely daring to breathe. I wondered for years, Mother, why a woman so ambitious wouldn't want me to have anything to do with Prince Solon. It's because you were afraid he was my brother. You were afraid that your whoring would lead me, innocently, to an incestuous bed. Apparently your sense of honor is only diseased, rather than non-existent. Tears were rolling down Duane's cheeks. Kaede, I was young. He said he loved me. Did you believe the green magus when they examined me? I had no idea why at the time. I was only 9 years old, too young to be showing talent yet. They found out that I was a Wariyama, didn't they? Weren't you relieved? For a while, when Solon came home, a full blue mage, at 19, he asked to see me secretly. That's when I knew. He tried to be so subtle, swearing how he would never hurt you, but under it all, there were threats, Kaede. What would happen when he got tired of you? What if I ever vexed him? He could destroy me with a word. I would be his slave for the rest of my life. What if you opposed him? He could lie, say the mages proved you were illegitimate. He was a mage himself. Everyone would believe it. We'd lose everything. Our only hope was to keep him away from us. It wasn't like I was hurting him. I even got him an offer for more schooling at Shosindi, which was a high honor. Kaede's face relaxed despite her fury. The decision had been made. The truth was out. Now there was room for sorrow. So you ruined my chances of happiness because you couldn't believe that the man I loved would keep his word? I was protecting us. No one's as good as they pretend to be, Duane said. True, in your case, Kaede said. She turned. Secretary, please record the Queen Mother is henceforth stripped of all privileges and titles. She is banished from all the isles and territories of Seth, and if found on them after tomorrow, the penalty will be death. At dawn, Chamberlain, you will have her accompanied to the harbor. You will pay her passage to whatever port she chooses. You will give her 10,000 yas and make sure that she leaves. You may be accompanied by one servant if one can be found who volunteers to accompany her. Everyone was stunned. Mother, Katie said, if this was the first time you'd lied to me, I wouldn't do this. It is, however, the last time. Guards, I wish 2 of you to stay with her at all times. I doubt she will attempt to harm herself, but she has known herself to be an adulteress and a liar. I don't expect the thief is below her. You can't do this, Duane said, breathing so rapidly Kaede expected her to pass out. I already have. I'm your mother. Kaede stepped forward and put her hands on each side of her mother's face. She kissed her forehead. She took hold of the 6 platinum chains strung beneath her mother's cheek and ear and tore them out. Duane screamed, her ear torn to ribbons, her cheek dribbling blood. Kaede said, No, you are Queen Mother no more. You are Duane Wariyama no more. Henceforth you are Duane Outcast. Guards, the captain of the guard and his second stepped forward and took the outcast by each arm to lead her from the room. Kaede, please! Captain, Kaede said as the guards neared the door, almost dragging their prisoner. About what happened here. The captain looked quickly at each of his men. You can be assured of my men's complete discretion, Your Majesty. Secretary cleared his throat. And I have written down the names of everyone in this room. If anyone speaks of this, they will be discovered and punished accordingly. He leveled a heavy gaze at each of the various servants and functionaries in the room. On the contrary, Kaede said, no one will be punished for speaking of what happened here. My dead mother shamed my family, and I will not grant her the mercy of covering her deeds in silence. Most of all, my betrothed and his family deserve to know the truth before they wed their honor to mine. If the Takadas went ahead with the marriage, obviously knowing the truth, they would have a harder time destroying her than if she married and then they found out about her shameful secret. Other than that, there were few things the Takadas could do. A coup was doubtful, despite Ashobi's popularity among the city guard. The Takadas postponing the marriage until spring was most likely, and that would give her time. Time might give her opportunities. Best for her personally and worse for Seth, the Takadas might cancel the wedding and withdraw to their home island. That would mean they would come back in the spring for war. At sunrise, Vi swung her feet over the side of her bed in her little room. She'd barely slept after leaving Sister Ariel, and she'd had terrible dreams about Kyler and oceans of blood. Maybe it was an omen. She was supposed to meet Elaine this morning, first thing. She touched the water basin. Cold, she said. When ice crystals began to spider across the surface, she broke the ice and washed her face, gasping despite herself. In minutes she finished her ablutions and pulled the ill-fitting Tyro's robe over her ill-fitting shift. Vi tied back her hair with the white ribbon Sister Ariel had given her. She heard the familiar scuff of Sister Ariel's steps before the sister knocked on her door and came in without waiting for permission. "You're up," Sister Ariel said, surprised. "You're going to see her?" "She's up in the pommel of the Seraph's sword," Vi asked. "Praying still, Uli says." Sister Ariel paused. "You're one of us now. The Seraph will pay your debts, if you need to. You can offer her whatever it takes." "I don't think she's looking for a bribe," Vi said. "Nor do I." Sister Ariel paused again. "I expected I'd have to force you to go to her. The girl you used to be would never have done this. Well done." Perfect. Now it was impossible to back down. Vi found the central staircase and began climbing. She was only a few floors up when the stones pulsed gently as they did every dawn. She paused on a landing as nearly invisible trickles of dust joined together into rivulets. They rushed past her feet as a small hole opened in the wall. The single day's accumulation of dust slipped through and the hole closed. Everywhere in the Seraph the scene was repeated. Powered by the first rays of sunlight, all natural dirt was whisked away. Outside, the Seraph would appear to be briefly surrounded by a corona as magic repulsed dirt, grime, rain, or snow. The debris would cascade into the lake, and there be dispersed by magic that kept the waters around the Seraph even cleaner than the rest of Lake Vespucci. There were, of course, still plenty of chores for the Tyros. The magic was disengaged in any room where it might interfere with the sisters' experiments or sensitive artifacts, and it disregarded scraps of parchment, clothes, or anything else someone might leave on the floor. But without the magic, the Tyros could have worked constantly and never been able to keep the chantry clean. It was simply too big. Vi reached one of the upper floors where full sisters had their apartments. There was some pecking order to who had what floor and which sister got the treasured southern exposures, but Vi had no idea how it worked. Mercifully, no one was in the hall. Vi followed the unflickering lamps to the southwest corner. The Seraph held a sword in her left hand, its point at her feet, the hilt coming above her waist, held slightly to one side. The pommel of that giant sword was capped with a round jewel. The room was a globe from which sisters could see sunrise and sunset. The walls were almost transparent. It was a sanctuary for those who needed to meditate, or, as in Elaine's case, pray. Taking a deep breath, Vi opened the door. Elaine was seated, looking toward the eastern mountains. The view was breathtaking. Vi had never been so high in her life. The punts in the lake below looked the size of her thumb. The mountains glowed. The sun was a jagged half-circle, barely peeking over them, but Vi's eyes sought out Elaine's face. Her skin glowed in the gentle light. Her eyes deep brown, her scars softened. She gestured for Vi to come stand with her, not glancing away from the horizon. Tentatively, Vi stepped up beside her. Together they watched the sunrise. Not daring to turn and look Elaine in the face, but not able to wait another moment, Vi said, "I'm so sorry if I interrupted your prayers." She drew her knife and rested it across her palms. "I made you a promise. I've done you and Kyler a great wrong. If you wish, I deserve no less." Elaine took the knife. After a minute she said, "His mercies are new every morning." Vi blinked. She glanced over at Elaine and saw a tear tracking down her cheek. Whose?" "The one God's. If he forgives you, how dare I not?" "What?" Elaine took Vi's right hand with her left. Then she stood shoulder to shoulder with her, looking at the newborn sun. She held Vi's hand firmly, but with nothing vindictive or tense in her grip. There was an aura about her of tremendous peace, peace so thick it slowly calmed Vi's taut nerves. After a few minutes, Elaine turned to her. Vi was surprised to find herself brave enough to meet the woman's eyes. "I believe that God has a purpose for me, Vi. I don't know what it is, but I know isn't murdering you." Elaine threw the knife aside. "We're in a big mess, but we're in it together, all right?"